Greetings everyone. Welcome to today's lecture on pedagogy of the oppressed. This is part of the ongoing series on inequality and difference. I have already taken up a discussion around several categories like class, caste, gender, tribe, etc. And we have seen that how factually it has been proved that these several categories are still suffering due to inequality and oppression. However, in today's lecture, I would be talking about the theorization. We would be discussing some of the theorists who have worked in this field, and hence I would be starting the discussion with Paulo Freire, whose time span was from 1921 to 1997. If we look at the biographical profile of Paulo Freire, he was born on September 19th, 1921 in northeastern Brazil. He came from a middle class family which suffered financial reverses during the Great Depression. He studied law, philosophy and psychology. In the early 1960s, he was actively involved in teaching literary skills to the peasants throughout Brazil. In 1964, Freire was jailed for his subversive activity and he was even expelled from Brazil. After his expulsion from Brazil, Freire worked in Chile for 15 years with the adult education programs. The country was one of the 5 nations of the world that was awarded by UNESCO in overcoming illiteracy. In 1969, Freire was invited by the University of Harvard. It was during this period that he completed his famous work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. After Harvard, he served in Switzerland and also some of the newly independent countries in Asia and Africa. In 1979, Freire returned from exile and took a faculty position at the University of Sao Paulo. In 1988, he was also appointed Minister of Education for the city of Sao Paulo. Freire died on May 2nd, 1997 at the age of 75, leaving behind a rich legacy of commitment and hope for oppressed not only in Brazil but throughout the world, and the work around adult education has continued thereafter. If we look at the main works of Paulo Freire, the list is endless. Some of the important works that I am talking about are Education as a Practice of Freedom, that came out in 1967, 1974, then Cultural Action for Freedom, 1968, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, 1968, 70, and then a revised version 1972. Then Education for Critical Consciousness, 1973, Pedagogy in Process, the Letters to Bissau, 1977. Then some of the other works are The Politics of Education, Culture, Power and Liberation, 1985, Pedagogy of the City, 1991, Pedagogy of Hope, 1992, Teachers as Cultural Workers, Letters to Those Who Dare Teach, 1993, Pedagogy of Freedom, then Pedagogy of the Heart, Pedagogy of Indignation. So the list seems to be endless. Out of all these works, the most influential and impactful work that has been in the field of education was Pedagogy of the Oppressed. The original version was 1972 and the revised one 2000. It was largely influenced by the writings of Marx and Hegel and the miseries and sufferings of the oppressed people around Freire. He advocated the use of education as an instrument of liberation from the oppression and inequality, demonstrated through the method of teaching illiterates as well as the struggle for national development. So, Freire talked about education as an instrument of liberation. Those who, in learning to read and write, come to a new awareness of selfhood and begin to look more critically at the social situation in which they find themselves, often take the initiative to transform the society that has denied them the opportunity of participation. So, according to Freire, education can be both subversive as well as critical. A very interesting concept that Freire developed in this work was education as banking. The teacher teaches and the students are taught. The teacher knows everything and the students know nothing. The teacher thinks and the students are thought about. So, these are some of the preconceived notions as far as education in modern world is concerned. He further stated, talking about the banking mode of education, the teacher talks and the students listen meekly. The teacher disciplines and the students are disciplined. The teacher chooses and enforces his choice and the students have no other option but to comply. The teacher acts and the students have the illusion of acting through the action of the teacher. The teacher chooses the program content and the students who were not consulted beforehand and the students have to adapt to it. The teacher confuses the authority of knowledge with his own professional authority, which he or she sets in opposition to the freedom of the students. The teacher is the subject of the learning process while the pupils are mere objects. So, these were some of the hallmarks that Freire pointed out of modern scheme of things in the institution of education. He further talked about the culture of silence, which again is responsible for promoting inequality and difference. Freire described the life of the poor as the culture of silence of the dispossessed. To him, their ignorance and lethargy were the product of the whole situation of economic, social, political and cultural domination. So, education is used as an instrument for the maintenance of the culture of silence. Another very important observation that was made by him was man as subject. Man's ontological vocation is said to be the subject who acts upon and transforms his world and in so doing moves towards ever new possibilities of fuller and richer individuality as well as collective life. Every human being is capable looking critically at his world in a dialogical encounter with others. So, therefore, there are three very important terms that Freire described, like dialogue, praxis and conscientization. According to Freire, unless and until our education system incorporates these, we cannot really think or we cannot really visualize of achieving equality and reducing the gaps between haves and have-nots. So, if we are talking about dialogue, it means mutual respect, awareness of others' perspectives and efforts to work together, while praxis means informed action. So, whatever an individual is doing in his or her life, they must be able to take informed action and not a forcible action. And conscientization basically means developing consciousness and its power to effect transformative learning. So, the five aspects of Paulo Freire's work have a particular significance for our purpose here. Firstly, his emphasis on dialogue has struck a very strong chord with those concerned with popular and informal education. Given that informal education is a dialogical or conversational kind of a process rather than a curricular form that is largely depends on preconceived format and is removed from reality. However, Paulo Freire was able to take the discussion on several steps with his insistence that dialogue involves respect. It should not involve one person acting on behalf of another, but rather people working with each other. And too much education, Paulo Freire argued, involved banking, the educator making deposits in the educatee. Secondly, when we are talking about praxis, Paulo Freire was concerned with action that is informed and also linked to certain values as well as ethics. Dialogue was not just about deepening understanding, but was also part of making a difference in the world and making a positive difference. Dialogue in itself is a cooperative activity involving mutual respect and coordination. The process is important and can be seen as enhancing community and building social capital and to leading us to act in ways that facilitate justice and humanitarian behavior. Informal and popular educators have had a long standing orientation to action. So, the emphasis on change in the world was welcome. A very important part of his philosophy related to informed action. He argued for informed action and as much and hence provided a useful counterbalance to those who want to diminish theory. And this is also the reason that I am today talking about these theorists. Then, talking about conscientization, Freire's attention to naming the world has been of great significance to those educators who have traditionally worked with those who do not have a voice and who are oppressed. The idea of building a pedagogy of the oppressed or a pedagogy of hope and how this may be carried forward has formed a significant impetus to this kind of a work. And when I am using the term pedagogy, it basically means teaching and learning process, which can be described as a kind of an educative process. An important element of this was his concern with conscientization, developing consciousness among individuals, and also a consciousness that should have the power to transform one's reality, that is, power to bridge the gaps, power that the marginalized sections of society would achieve out of education to improve their life conditions. So, Freire spoke about two types of education: the banking education and the problem posing education. So, while treating students as objects of teaching and in the process domesticating them, immobilizing and fixating them, all this could be considered as part of the banking style of education. Whereas the other style of education promoted dialogue, developed students as critical thinkers, and also was liberating in the process. Freire offered in his book Pedagogy of the Oppressed a detailed analysis of the shortcomings of the prescriptive style of teaching. Now, what do you mean by the prescriptive style of teaching? It was a style in which the teacher assumes an authoritarian role, and Freire referred this as the banking system. And all the features that I have discussed with you of the banking system, if we observe minutely, then we can say that they still continue to pervade our education system. In the banking system of education, the transaction basically revolved around the act of transferring knowledge from teacher's head and depositing it in students' heads. Here, the students were the depositories and the teacher was the depositor. So, it was a very technical kind of a give and take that Freire indicated, with no value addition in the process. In opposition to this domesticating system, Freire suggested a problem posing education, which will break the vertical pattern characteristics of the traditional teacher-student relations by establishing a horizontal dialogue. So, the teacher and the student would both come at par and they would be at the same level as far as the sharing of knowledge and experience was concerned, because the students would be participating in the action of learning. They would not only be silent receptors. Now, we also must discuss what were the aims of education according to Freire that would help in achieving equality in society. So, Freire commented that no one can teach anyone else, no one earns alone, people learn together, acting in and on their world. And according to Freire, the function of education was to humanize individuals through conscious action for the purpose of making world a better place to live and with lesser inequalities. And in such a process, education cannot be neutral. It can either be an instrument of domination or liberation. So, the educative processes domesticate people where there exists a dominant culture of silence, and in this culture people are taught to accept what is handed down to them by the ruling elite without questioning. Hence, their understanding of their social reality is limited to what they are taught and told to accept and believe. The following are some of the important constructs of Freire's educational views. Firstly, he spoke of education as a cultural tool for liberation from oppression. It must give learners the tools to be creators of their own reality as well as of their own destiny. Secondly, he remarked that education is always a political act. It cannot be politically neutral because education must empower individuals, and this empowerment is definitely rooted in this political undertone. Then it can either be an instrument of domination or liberation. So, it depends on the kind of education system that one is opting for, which would decide whether the society would lead to the domination or liberation. Thirdly, he pointed out that education is some kind of a communion, the state of exchanging thoughts and feelings between participants in a dialogue characterized by reflexive, reciprocal and socially relevant exchange of ideas rather than the one-way action or one-way transfer of knowledge from one individual to the other, in this case from teacher to the student. Then knowledge is not a set of commodity that is passed from the teachers to the students. Learners must construct knowledge from knowledge they already possess. So, here again the idea that he was promoting was participation of the learners in the process of knowledge creation. Then he further pointed out that learning begins only with action. It is a process where knowledge is presented to learner, then shaped through understanding, discussion, reflection, and this participative process, according to Freire, was the most important aspect of modern system of education. However, this had not really been incorporated in most of the institutions. Then students should not be viewed as an empty account to be filled in by the teacher, something which he described as the banking system of education. Teachers should know that students have their own life experiences, their own knowledge, and all that should also shape their education and learning, and it should not only be the knowledge of the teacher that should be imparted in the head of the student. Then he further stated that education is a phenomenon in which educator and educatee both educate each other through the act of education. Again, this is the best way of bringing about equality, where there is no categorization between the oppressor and the oppressed, and people are at par and they kind of share knowledge and their experiences. Then he further stated that education is a critical understanding of reality. Reading the word cannot be separated from reading the world. So education should raise the awareness of the students so that they become subjects rather than objects of the world. Such a beautiful and a meaningful statement, that all humans should become subjects rather than objects of the world. The method of education should start from the situation and reality of people rather than from the building of a school or a college. So the life situation of people should be made into a problem posing education and also a problem posing situation. So in this way, the realities of peoples would matter, and the education would also be more responsive to the conditions that the students or the humans are facing. Educational practice is not an extension but a communication, and communication involves mutual dialogue, whereas extension involves transplanting knowledge. Thanks a lot.